Well, that was fast.
Do you even realize how lucky you are to be alive right now, to exist at the same time as Concord? You are alive at a time that people will talk about for centuries to come. You get to witness the biggest failure in gaming. Not only the biggest failure in gaming, but undoubtedly one of the biggest failures in all of entertainment.
Nomad sent it to me and I replied back. I said, I used to pray for times like these. It's crazy. Yep, it's dead. It's actually fucking dead.
So Concord fans, you know, I hate how they're using fans in the plural sense. You know, I went to English class. Plural means more than one, Sony, and I don't even think there was a Concord fan, all right?
This is the news, and unbelievable. 8 years of development time, millions upon millions of dollars thrown into a project that got shut down in 2 weeks. That's unheard of. That's a unprecedented level of failure.
And when you're like pillar of decision making, yes, our pillar of decision making is we hope people like it and spend lots of money.
Apparently that 25,000 number, that's not the Steam. They Steam the PlayStation 5 up on there and putting it in. What?
It's just not a good game, and it's a game nobody wanted. That is the problem of the people that brainstormed this, greenlight this, and then made the team work on it. So whoever came up with those ideas and pushed all this forward, those are the ones that are responsible for the tragedy that is Concord.
You know, any other IP that I've seen launch multiplayer-wise has done far more successfully by a wide, multiple amounts of margins as compared to something like this. Insane failure.
But let me know, are you going to be playing Concord or are you going to go play Black Myth Wukong and other games that are, what's the word? It's that word Jim Ryan never can remember. Oh, fun. Yeah, fun games.
What if I asked you what the worst video game release of all time is? What are some examples that come to mind? Some prime examples for me are No Man's Sky, Fallout 76, and Anthem. These are 3 examples of games that stumbled out of the gate. But for a long time it was actually E.T., the extraterrestrial for the Atari. Often referred to as the game that almost killed the video game industry, E.T. was rushed to the market in just 5 weeks to capitalize on the movie's success. The result was a game that was nearly unplayable, leading to massive returns in an unsold inventory. Atari famously burned thousands of unsold copies in a landfill, symbolizing the game's failure. This fiasco contributed to the 1983 video game crash, which severely impacted the industry until the rise of Nintendo. But what if I told you that we've all officially been a part of history, as Concord will be shutting down just 2 weeks after officially debuting, after 8 years of development. To put this in perspective, Concord at its peak had 699 active players on the game. Some prime examples of games that did better were The Day Before, which peaked at 38,000. Redfall, what was considered one of the worst games of 2023, peaked at 1,500. Even Gollum, in my opinion the worst game of 2023, peaked at 758 players. Hell, Skull and Bones has more active players right now in a 24-hour span than Concord ever did at its peak. But how did this happen in the first place? For that, we had to go to the beginning. Firework Studios, a subsection of Probably Monsters, was founded in 2018 by industry veterans Ryan Ellis, Tony Hsu, and Elena Siegeman. The founders, who had previously worked on Bungie's Destiny franchise, established Firewalk with the goal of creating innovative and engaging video games. Initially, the studio operated out of a small garage with Probably Monsters headquarters, under the leadership of Harold Ryan, the company's CEO and former Bungie executive. Sony Interactive Entertainment took notice of Firewalk's potential early on and decided to support the studio's endeavors. In order to foster a closer partnership with Sony, Firewalk was given its own dedicated space separated from Probably Monsters' other studios. This move allowed Firewalk to focus on developing a AAA multiplayer title for the PlayStation 5 with the backing of Sony. In April of 2021, Sony and Probably Monsters announced a publishing deal for Firewalk's upcoming project, marking a significant milestone for the studio. The partnership with Sony propelled Firewalk into the spotlight as it continued to grow its team and expand its capabilities. However, in August of 2022, Elena Siegeman departed from Firewalk, leaving behind a legacy of creative contributions to the studio. Fast forward to April of 2023, Sony made a bold move by announcing its plans to acquire Firewalk from Probably Monsters, solidifying its commitment to the studio's success. This acquisition paved the way for the exciting collaborations with other PlayStation subsidiaries, such as Bungie and Haven Studios, in the development of Firewalk's highly anticipated title, Concord. The announcement of a PC version alongside the PlayStation 5 release further underscored Firework's commitment to reaching a wider audience. With a team of approximately 150 talented individuals, Firework Studios was poised for success as it geared up for the launch of Concord in 2024. But at the end of the day, Sony did not realize the one key flaw in their process for Concord. Hero shooters are dead, and it's the last thing the gaming community wanted. Hero shooters were once the talk of the gaming world, popularized mostly by the original Overwatch. But they've lost a lot of steam recently. The main issue is that the market got way too overcrowded, with countless games trying to replicate the success that Overwatch had. This led to player fatigue, and there wasn't much to set these games apart from one another. Meanwhile, around 2017 and 2018, players started gravitating towards other genres like Battle Royales, which offered something completely different. Big, chaotic, last-person standing action that felt fresh compared to the more structured, team-focused gameplay of hero shooters. Fortnite really popularized this because they really took over the market with Battle Royales. While PUBG did start it, Fortnite did it in a separate way that made a billion players basically play the game at the same time. On top of that, many hero shooters leaned heavily on monetization strategies like loot boxes and battle passes, which didn't always sit well with players. Over time, it felt like these games were more focused on making money than keeping things fun and balanced. New hero shooters struggled to innovate, so players had little reason to leave established games for something new. As a result, the genre just couldn't keep up with the momentum, and players started looking for more engaging and fresh experiences elsewhere. Concord, the latest multiplayer shooter developed by Firework Studios and released by Sony, quickly encountered significant challenges that led to its rapid decline. Launched on August 23rd of 2024, literally not even 2 weeks ago, the game struggled to maintain an audience, with its player count plummeting shortly after release. On Steam, the peak player count reached just only 697 players on its launch day, and within a few days, that number dropped to just 28. This stark decline underscores the broader issue facing the game. It entered an oversaturated market at a time when players have grown increasingly weary of live service titles that aren't already entrenched in the gaming landscape or aren't easily recognizable with characters. These struggles lean towards a broader trend with the gaming industry, particularly in the hero shooter genre. Despite being in development for over 8 years, the game failed to capture the interest of a substantial player base. Sony's decision to invest heavily in the live service games like Concord reflects on a misguided belief that the model is the future of gaming, when in reality it died out around 2019 as the Battle Royale genre really popped off, and if you're not one of the big games in the gaming industry, there's no point in trying to be different, especially with a hero genre that is completely outdated. The cancellation is no fault in its own to Concord, because it actually looks like a decent game, but there's nothing there. There's nothing recognizable about the game. They really didn't do anything to promote this game either, as they just put this game out there and said, people will play it. It just shows that Sony put no effort into this game when it comes to advertising, and when you do that, you don't build up hype for the game. And also when it's an outdated category, when this was popular back when LeBron James was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, you know you're gonna have a problem. And I know what everyone's thinking. Oh, but what, Helldivers 2 was released by Sony? Actually, no, it was published by Sony, and it was actually developed by an indie studio that put a lot of effort and time into it. Sony had nothing to do with that project, but they put every ounce of their being into Concord being the next Overwatch, when Overwatch is already dead. The failure of Concord, a game backed by substantial resources, aka over $100 million, and developed over many years, raises important questions about the viability of live service models in an increasingly crowded and competitive market. Moving forward, Sony needs to reconsider its approach. And no, I'm not saying that you should just stop making hero shooters, but if you're going to make a hero shooter in a very dead genre, you have to have something to back it up, like a PvE, that will satisfy players. The game was envisioned as a major franchise for Sony, with ambitious plans for continuous content updates including weekly motion captured cinematic cutscenes, and just to think, to look back on it, it took 8 years to develop this. At some point, you have to cut the cord, but when you put over $100 million into this, it makes it really hard to do. Industry analysts estimated that the game only sold around 25,000 units, and doing the math, Sony lost $99 million in the span of 2 weeks. Even on PlayStation, it ranked as the 147th most played game during its launch week. These sales figures were further evidenced by the game's poor showing on the sales charts on Steam. It ranked as the 3,983rd best-selling game, while on PlayStation it was the 154th best-selling game just 12 days after its release. Even if the game's budget were half of the estimated amount, the losses would still be substantial, with little room for recovery. The severity of Concord's underperformance suggests that Sony may accelerate plans to make the game free to play in an attempt to attract a larger player base. And I'm going to say this right now. If you have a really terrible game that you originally do for $40, which is an absurd price just to start off, but then if you try and mask it by just making it free to play, that wasn't the problem with the game. It was a big contributor. People didn't want to pay the price of a $40 game that they could just get for free with Overwatch 2, but that's not the point. You need to advertise this more. You need to actually put more effort into your product. You couldn't just have the development team create this pretty decent game. Not outstanding by any means, but still pretty decent. Just for only 700 players to play it on PC. Concord's situation is dire, and Sony may have no choice but to implement drastic measures to salvage the project. However, giving the game severely damaged reputation, even a shift to a free-to-play model is going to make the game no better. Now, from what I'm reading online, this game is still salvageable, technically, because they still have the rights to it until March of 2025. So they can work on it and then re-release it. But at the end of the day, it's still not going to do good. The damage has already been done. When Moist Critical said that we're a part of history, not only video game history, but entertainment history, that's literally the case. And researching into this, there were actual real good developers that were playing this game and like were genuinely like wanting this game to succeed. Except that guy. And it's so sad that a bunch of people put so much effort into this game just for it to crap itself. There's no better way of saying it. You lost in 2 weeks what LeBron James made the last 2 years on his Lakers contract. It took him 2 years of full basketball to earn $100 million, and you lost it in 2 weeks. This is one of the greatest company collapses I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, this is going to be studied in business classes for at least 100 years, maybe even 200 if we don't have another collapse like that. Because we have bad games that we find out after a little bit, oh, they're trash. Oh, they're not even good. This one's just bad. And I wanted to bring up the pronouns part of Concord that they wanted to include. I don't really see an issue with that. And I don't think if people focus on that, they're focusing on the main issue. Because if everything worked and the game was actually outstanding, people wouldn't care about that. And I think that's just sort of a blanket statement. Of course, people don't want that, but that's so subjective, and I do not really believe that. Because this is just a flop. This is just one of the greatest flops in video game history. And I did a YouTube video on Evolve. That piece of shit that had the worst downfall I've ever seen in my entire life. One of the biggest things I can point out as a silver lining is that clearly the AAA industry is at its worst right now. And I have to give credit to all of the people like us, the consumers, that looked at a AAA title and said, no, we're not going to buy it just because it's a AAA title. Especially when it's an outdated game, outdated gameplay, outdated everything. And like the gameplay is good and you're not going to show on the developers. It's shame on you for the AAA studios that consistently try and get away with stuff for the past decade. And we just stood up. This is one of the most successful boycotts I've ever seen in my entire life. The amount of money they lost is going to hopefully change the AAA industry for the better, because it's been so bad and the indie scene has been thriving because of how bad the AAA games has been. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know about that. I originally had a video planned that was most likely going to be 20 minutes long. I don't think it's going to be 20 minutes long, but that's just a rough estimate. That I'm still going to release either Friday or Saturday. I had to get this video out. This is one of the most insane things. We have all been alive and saw the news break and saw everything break down of the greatest collapse in video game history. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell for future notifications. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.